School District Board of Trustees to order. A quorum of board members is present. This workshop has been duly called and a notice of the workshop has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. First item on our agenda is public comments. Do we have anyone signed up? Thank you. We'll move on into our workshop. Update on Goal 3, attract, retain, and support a world-class team of employees.
Madam President, sorry everybody. Good evening, everyone. Madam President, members of the board, it is my pleasure to welcome a group of our team tonight to be here to present to you. As you all know, we've been using workshops to engage the board in a little bit different dialogue in the past. This isn't just normal presentation time. This is where we have interactive discussion with you and provide you updates on our progress on the goals that you adopted in June of last year, and then the key progress measures that you adopted in August. And this is the work that's been going on in the school district to help move those things forward. So tonight we have people from multiple departments because these goals actually touch many departments. They're not just one department owns one goal. And they're going to be talking to you about our progress so far, and they're going to be asking you for some dialogue and feedback along the way because this is about the team of 8 and our administration coming together to move the good work forward in our school district. So I'll welcome Dr. Golden to come on up.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I'm just here to set the stage for my dear friends behind me, and our purpose again this evening is to engage in a conversation with you. As Dr. Smith said, we are thankful that you approved 5 goals, and they are so very interconnected, but we're here this evening to focus on Goal 3. So Goal 3 is to attract, retain, and support a world-class team of employees. And so our purpose again on the next slide is just to engage you in a conversation. So please just want to encourage you to stop us, ask questions. We're going to ask you questions and really want this to be a conversation this evening. So on the next slide, just want to talk about, while we said all 5 of our goals are interconnected, so is the work that you're going to hear about this evening. So within Goal 3, there are 3 pieces that we're going to talk to you about tonight. But again, each piece is interconnected and touched by the other pieces of this presentation this evening. And so the first part is Portrait of an Employee. And so Todd Schiller and Calvin Itz are going to be here this evening, and they're going to share with you efforts around, like, what does it mean to be world-class team of employees in Belton ISD? What's the work we need to begin around defining that, as well as other efforts in this area? They're going to talk about that. But when we move into professional learning systems, while attracting and recruiting a world-class team of employees to Belton is so important, once they're here, we want to keep them. We want to provide them with support. And we believe that having a world-class professional learning system to support each and every employee, this isn't just for one set of employees. We're talking our custodial staff, ground staff, teachers, and principals, all staff, which leads me into that third gear, which is around cultivating leadership. So we have our executive directors for school leadership, which thanks to your support, they're here this evening, and they're going to talk to you about their role specifically in providing and facilitating professional learning for our campus principals, but also the coaching that they do. We want you to have a really good picture of what they do each and every day to support our campus principals. And so with that, I think Todd is going to kick us off this evening. I'm going to turn it over to him.
All right. Good evening, everyone. So I'm going to take you back to last month when Dr. Golden presented the Journey of a Graduate information. We heard a few comments from you all about how this work could potentially impact other work that will be occurring throughout the district. And without a doubt, it most definitely will. The Journey of a Graduate work does lay the foundation for things to come. I'll be discussing with you tonight working on things we're working on in human resources directly connected to attracting, retaining, and supporting employees. When we talk about attracting applicants, one of our initiatives in the fulfillment of this goal is to identify what a world-class employee is. Oh, next slide, I'm sorry. Here we go. What a world-class employee is. We all know we have a fantastic team of staff here at Belton ISD, but what does it mean to be world-class? We're going to answer this question by conducting a process similar to the process used in Journey of a Graduate, where we will obtain feedback from staff, the community, and students, and have them identify and rank competencies that reflect a Belton ISD employee. Our hope is to identify general competencies that reflect not just teachers, but each and every employee, from custodians on up. The information we receive will be used to portray a portrait of, I'm going to call it, a big red employee, world-class employee, and define new processes and strengths, current practices in attracting, strengthen our current practices in attracting, recruiting, retaining, and supporting employees. This work will only be the beginning of the work. The result of the work will impact how we work at our district. Information that will be created, we foresee materials and videos used. We see this information being used at job fairs, schools, media messaging, including information that will be posted on our website. Just a whole different image of Belton ISD. Our intent with doing this is to increase our pool of applicants that want to be world-class or big red. I want to take a few minutes now just to kind of pause a little bit and let y'all have a discussion about what does it mean, what do y'all feel like in Belton ISD, what does it mean to be world-class or be big red? So just jump out there.
I'll
So-
start. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Are you sure?
I'm sure.
Okay, so to me, the most important thing is that we graduate kids that are ready to be productive, contributing citizens of their community. And my foundational belief is that communities are made better, 100% better, by educating kids in high-quality schools. And if the whole community doesn't support that, everybody suffers.
And so my comment is the fact that we have so many people from around the world that do find Little Old Belton, that it's important that we are teaching not just what we've always taught in Belton. We need to get beyond reading, writing, arithmetic, and certainly we're there, but we just need to continue to focus on what is the rest of the world teaching, what is going to be expected of our students out in the world, so.
Yeah, I mean, maybe to pull this a little bit more generic, I mean, collaborative problem solvers, right? And if we take a look at COVID, right? I mean, how does specifically teachers, but this applies, I think, to everybody top to bottom, right? How do we pull together to leverage each other's strengths, right? To get past whatever that problem is. How do we leverage each other to, you know, take our education into an online setting, right? Where we happen to be right now, and push past that problem together. I think that's extremely important, right? That collaborative problem-solving piece. Yeah.
Anybody else? Does any certain competencies come to mind when you think about those? When you think about a Belton ISD employee?
You know, I'll just add real quick on to what Chris just said. One of the things that we've tried to do through the whole pandemic is open questions up to our community and to teachers and to staff and to ask their input. And so that idea of collaborative problem solving, I mean, nobody had a playbook for this stuff. So
Yeah.
the more minds we could get around these topics, the better. And that makes a whole lot of sense from, I mean, an employee standpoint. I think we're going to need people that bring great thoughts, great minds together to solve the toughest problems that you could ever imagine. So that was a good one.
I mean, oh, go ahead, Ty.
I think we're kind of in the process. I think the last year plus, because of the change at the top, I think that when we got into that, we had to start kind of looking at ourselves, what has made us really competitive and made us desirable district, but who could we bring in to take us to another level? And I think that was a big part of what our evaluation process was when we decided to bring in who we did. So to me, we've had a huge turnover in reflection time and bringing in new ideas at the top to help. We've always been a desirable district for people to work in. I remember when my uncle was on the board, you know, we were probably $10,000 a teacher less than some of the competitive districts. but people still chose to work here because it was a desirable place to be. So we've kept that core, but we've also brought our salaries up, especially like in the principal, with this last go-around of pay raises. And that enabled you guys to go out and enlarge the pool of principals, which to me is the most important position in our district. That's just Ty Taggart's belief, is the principal is really the foundation of the working everyday job. So I think we're in a process right now of taking ourselves to that world-class level, because we got to keep the same core values that have made this a desirable district, not just for people to come bring their kids, but for teachers and employees to want to work. And I commend you and the HR people. Y'all have done a good job at that. So the more desirable you make it from a culture standpoint, salary standpoint, then you're able to go out and you're able to recruit at a higher level. And I think this last year, personally, in my 4th year, we've taken leaps and bounds in this 4th year of me being on the board because of you guys bringing in new leadership. So I think we're in a huge turnover phase right now. And our trajectory right now is on the way up. That's how I see it.
That's great.
Todd, I have a,
No, you go ahead.
okay. As I ponder your question about competencies, I've heard that word, I don't know how many times, and that word just keeps coming up over and over and over again. In our policy committee meeting, that came up when we discussed the journey of a graduate. It's come up many times whenever we've had these meetings. So in my view, I think that as it reflects on your department, I think the competencies that we want our students to have are the same competencies that we want our staff to have.
Yes.
So those things have to mesh, and if they don't mesh, then what are we doing?
Right.
So I think if I'm on the hunt for folks, if you and Calvin are on the hunt for folks, then that's the kind of folks I want to bring in here. They need to fit within that, the competencies that we want our kids to have when they leave this school. So if they don't mesh, then we're missing the point here.
Good points. Okay. Other
Mr.
items
Floor?
that we're also working on beyond the world-class.
Hold on
employee-
one second. I think
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Floor had another question.
Sorry, Chris.
I'm
Or
sorry.
comment.
I'm that guy. Right? I think some of what I heard in what Ty was saying was, basically we want people who make others around them better, right? Selflessly kind of help lift the whole group. And then I would also say, people who are visible in the community, right? Part of the community, and examples in the community. So, okay.
Okay.
I've got one other little thing as well. And that is, trying not to be punitive with teachers that need growth. We need to make sure that each and every teacher, just like we're focusing on each and every student, each and every teacher has a path to growth and to success and to being better. And that we can't allow for pockets of anonymity. Like, everybody needs to be able to be out front, and we need to know that everybody's putting their best foot forward, and we've got to do that in the right way, in an encouraging and good way.
Perfect. Thank you. So beyond the world-class employees, and we talked about how that's going to impact how we brand and we market our district with these competencies and the types of staff that we're trying to attract and retain. As you know, and Ty mentioned it, there's things that we currently do with providing compensation, salary studies, market comparisons, benefit reviews, determining appropriate staffing levels. All of those things assist in retaining and supporting staff. But there are other items that we're looking at enhancing, and one of them is being the orientation and mentoring process. And we want our orientation process to do more than just provide required mandated training and benefits information. We want an orientation process that defines the culture of this district. We want a culture day as part of our orientation process, where individuals will come in and they'll learn what it is to be in Belton ISD, what it means, why, the staff around them and the dedication towards the students. We want to embed that into a culture day for our staff.
What kind of timeline are you talking about as far as
Yeah,
orientation?
we really hope to have a culture day for this upcoming school year, for the 21-22 school year. And so we'd probably be doing that at the beginning of the year in August of 2021.
Just spending a day on orientation and then just ongoing mentoring then?
That is correct. That's correct. And we are going to be working,
One of the things that I think that is really important is we've heard in the policy committee a few times, I've heard it come up in the facilities committee, and I've heard it from board meetings here, is how important it is that as we grow, we don't lose the identity of what makes Belton ISD special. And so when Todd kind of glossed over that pretty quickly, but I'm super excited about the work he and his HR team are talking about, that idea of investing one day of professional learning in the summer for a culture day, so every new employee that joins our team knows and understands what it means to be a part of this community and has the same values that our school board lays out and that we espouse on a daily basis. And that focus on that hopefully will keep that culture continuing and living on as we continue to see rapid growth. So super excited about what he's mentioned in there.
that's pretty. And then with mentoring, we will be working with our leadership staff, and we're going to develop a mentoring process where individuals can have the support from other individuals that are in similar like positions and be used as a resource and a mentor for them and help them grow and make sure they have the tools to be successful. The last thing I'll mention on this slide is our Hrtu program. Spent a lot of work, Calvin has spent a lot of work in creating this Hrtu program. And so this Hrtu program is an opportunity for human resources staff and payroll staff to get out and visit the campuses and talk with individuals on the campuses, answer questions that they may have regarding salaries, benefits, leave events, certifications, W-2 withholdings, those types of things. And so we're excited about that. We've gotten some great feedback. COVID's kind of limited us to a little bit of who can go out because they're needing to stay back a little bit and handle a variety of different things that are going on with that. But we are dedicated to taking their questions if we can't answer them and follow up with them within the same day. So we've gotten some great feedback on that and look forward to continuing to do that yearly.
Todd, quick question. Going back to the orientation part, can you kind of walk me through what that's going to look like? Is this going to be Belton ISD-wide, specific campus? Kind of walk me through what your ideas are on that.
Yeah, so we want to, the Culture Day is a big part of it, just identifying kind of what it means to be a Belton ISD individual. There's some things that we're required by law to provide employees, so obviously that's going to be and continue to be included. But we also want them to get a feel for what Belton ISD is. Understand like who's in various positions. We might have departments come in and give presentations regarding this is what this department handles, or this is some curriculum instruction staff or teaching and learning staff, and kind of what their responsibilities are in the district and how they can support you and those types of things. This is something that we see as it's not just HR standing up there and providing a set of information, but a variety of different departments coming in and being a part of that orientation process for new employees.
I think, yeah. And then the Culture Day, kind of walk me through that. What is that going to look like?
Yeah, so that's my wheels are spinning on that one.
Okay.
Matt and I kind of talked a little bit about that probably a couple of weeks ago. And the more I think about it, the more excited I get. But it's really for people to understand, the type of people that we like to see here in Belton ISD and what it means to be a part of Belton ISD. And a lot of different factors can be a part of that.
I hate to say this because I know Jeff and Todd are really going to like this, and it's going to pain me to say this. But I think the Aggies tend to do a really good job of promoting their culture with all of their incoming freshmen at Texas A&M. And I use that as an example, tongue in cheek. I think a lot of colleges do this well. But that whole notion of immersing people in what the culture is and showing them the great experiences and talking also about how we're going to do business, not just about the what, but about how we're going to treat each other, because as Chris mentioned earlier, that idea of collaborative problem solving is super important. And we're not going to talk down to somebody. We're actually going to listen to the voices of the people in our organization and actually try and make sure that we're all moving forward together. And so Culture Day for me is really establishing, it's a different shade of red in Belton ISD, right? Establishing what it really means to be part of this big red community and being able to clearly communicate that to the employees that are joining our team.
Okay.
I think a lot of that is, the core values that we have here in Belton ISD and what we take care of.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And we'll try to make it a lot like fish camp, I guess.
Great. We call that indoctrination. But, I mean, it is going to be such a big thing, and the HR department, relatively small, honestly, considering how many employees we have. So are you going to enlist a lot of employees from every part, teachers and librarians, and bring everybody in so that it's just not all weight on y'all?
I don't know what levels we'll go to, but it will definitely be involving more than human resources staff, that's for sure. And so it is a working process.
So you mentioned core principles. I know that BISD has core principles, but every campus has an individual culture. So how are you all going to address that in this day of culture information? How are you going to address
We're
that?
definitely going to have principals and department leaders involved in that process, whether it happens that same day or a follow-up day after that on their campuses to communicate what's important at those campuses. That's something that we'll have to work out and be able to do. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Calvin Itz, and he's going to talk to you about two things that we're implementing as far as into our application process. One of them is a Gallup product, and the other one is teacher applicant videos.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, so a big piece of retaining staff is hiring well to begin with, right? So this year we're excited to provide some support to our principals and their hiring committees with a couple new tools, Gallup Teacher Insight and a video submission that the teacher applicants will submit. Both of these will be embedded in the teacher application process. And the Teacher Insight's an assessment. It takes the candidate about 35 minutes to complete. And the premise behind Gallup's work here is if a candidate possesses talents that align with the typical characteristics of the most successful teachers, then we can predict that the candidates will likely and naturally and consistently behave in ways that will lead to top performance. So when principals, next slide, could you click on that link? Yeah, I want you to see the Teacher Insight. So when principals are reviewing applications, what they'll be able to see is a Teacher Insight Index score. That's that 80% that you're seeing there. This would be an ideal candidate. They'll also see a talent dimensions. There's 3 of those below. And the Teacher Index score provides the best prediction of an applicant's potential success as a classroom teacher. What they found was that teachers who scored in the top quartile, where you're seeing 80%, if they scored in the top quartile, they were 2.5 times more likely to receive the highest principal scores on their evaluation than those that scored in the bottom half. Those that scored in the top half were 2.1 times more likely to receive higher scores. So don't want anybody to walk away thinking you've got to score an 80, but it's a tool. The talent dimensions, there's 3 of those: achievement drive, classroom structure and planning, and student and parent relationships. Achievement drive, think of teachers who score high in this area are driven to reach higher levels of mastery, learning, and student achievement. Classroom structure and planning, these teachers are well prepared. They're thoughtful and creative while establishing a sense of order. And student and parent relationships, these teachers are energetic, positive, enjoy communicating with students. They have a strong belief in building healthy relationships, and they see that parent relationship as equally important. And then if you look down, there's a little gray box at the bottom, and there's some indicators there. There's a principal talent indicator, and there's either, it's scored as high potential or potential. And that's just an indicator for us to see that maybe we want to investigate this individual a little further. They may have some leadership qualities. And then the engagement creation index is an interesting one, and I think it ties into what Chris Floor was saying, making others around you better. The engagement creation index is a measure of an individual's capacity to create or elevate the level of engagement among his or her team of coworkers. They generate energy and commitment, and they can facilitate clarity of objectives and mobilize their peers towards problem solving. So the other piece Gallup will provide at the end of the year is they'll provide some reports to human resources that will give us an indication as far as recruiting trends. By asking candidates questions within the assessment, what caused you to apply, so we can start to really see where are these people coming from, what attracted them, was it social media, was it job fairs, et cetera. And then they also give us some scoring. We'll provide them some information, and then they'll give us data to show, and it'll be great after 2 years, but what it'll be is the average scores of the candidates who are bilingual, who have master's degree or national board certification compared to our overall district average, and also averages within hard-to-fill positions such as math, science, special ed, and foreign language. Another piece to the tool is FIT interview questions, and they call it Further Insight into Talent. And so when you think of the Teacher Insight, it's a predictive tool, and the FIT interview questions, that's where you take the talent dimensions, those three, and the interview committee can dig down deeper and get more of a descriptive, information about a candidate. So the second new tool I mentioned, a teacher video. We want to show kindness to our candidates. Sometimes doing a video interview can be intimidating, and so we want to see our candidates at their very best. And so the use of technology has been a requirement for a teacher for a long time, especially this year. And so they'll provide a 1-minute video answering one or all 3 of the questions that we pose. It's completely transparent. The questions will be on the application, and they were developed with our principal input. Some benefits here is the teacher gets to record it as many times as they want. They can practice it much like a lesson plan. You know, it's not a one-shot at the lesson plan or the video they produce for their kids or families. So what the principal will have this year, in addition to looking at an application, resume, reference letters, they're going to have a teacher, they're going to have all this Gallup information, and they'll have a video that's 1 minute in length that they can use as a screening tool or a level 1 interview, if you will. The great thing about this is a principal can actually hear from every candidate and not just those that are selected to come in for interviews. It allows a principal to observe their quality of work and their job skill. And it protects the time of that interview committee. Those teachers, we do a great job. Our principals bring in teachers all the time to be a part of the hiring process, and that's great. We want to keep that, but we also want to make sure we're bringing them the very best. So I think it honors their time as well. So, questions?
Is this the first time we've ever used a tool such as this?
So when I first came to the district as a principal, we had, I guess it was actually when I was an AP, we had Gallup, but all Gallup would provide at the time was one score in isolation. And so they've really improved it. The data that they use is based off of 1920 survey results, and so it's constantly updated. So I feel better about that. When we started talking to them, that was one of my early requests was I really don't want us to have one single score and they have to score above a 70. It's a tool and not the be-all, end-all. And then once we have a few years of data, we'll really be able to assess the effectiveness and our use of it.
So does a candidate have the ability to go back and change their answers? Or say they got a 60 or whatever?
No.
Do they have the ability to go back and manually change those responses?
They can't go back and edit, but if they do Teacher Insight in another district, they have the option to redo it, or they can just, it will ask them if they want their scores just to transfer over. And they do communicate, they encourage the candidate to use the original score.
Thank you. Board, do y'all have any questions? Manuel?
Calvin, is the tool effective, equally effective for candidates that have differing levels of experience?
It should measure the characteristics of highly effective teachers. So because those characteristics are developed by assessing teachers with various levels of experience, I would argue that it absolutely would.
You know, like if you have a teacher that has 1 year experience versus someone that has 10 years of experience, does the tool have a weakness there, or is it pretty good either way?
Well, I'm not confident I can say that it has a weakness.
Yeah, it's probably a bad term, but I mean,
Yeah.
if you're using that as a tool, I mean, do you put that in your head and say, well, you know, this teacher's only been teaching a year?
Yes, so I think as a principal, when you're reviewing that candidate and you see they just graduated college, I would not expect to see that candidate
Right.
in the top 10% yet. But I think you can identify some characteristics there, and that's also why we want the video submission. And then ultimately, you're always going to come back to that interview committee to make those decisions, the hiring decisions. So that's why we want this to be a tool. But
Right.
I'm real hesitant to set a threshold on score to kind of protect exactly the example you're giving.
I see.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else have any questions?
Yeah.
Mr. Flora?
So this is something that we would have candidates do, like they're not, so particularly if we look at like college candidates, they're not like doing it at their campus and then submitting that to us necessarily, like it's part of our hiring process. Okay.
Yes.
And I would assume it's similar to like a strength finder or something like that. Okay. From a video interview standpoint, I mean, it's a really cool idea, right? I mean, it gives you an opportunity to see a lot of great things, but it also opens the door potentially for some unconscious bias issues and things like that, right? And so I would just ask that we put something in place around, how do we manage that?
Could you repeat that, Chris? I didn't hear what you said.
So while we get to see a lot of great things from the video, it does kind of kick the door open for unconscious bias, right?
Oh,
And so
gotcha.
like things like interviewers tend to make offers to people that look like them, right? And so things like that, right? I mean, there's a whole bunch of them. And so I just want to make sure we put protections in place so that we're able to identify that and try to keep that from happening.
Absolutely.
That's good. Anyone else? Nope. Thank you.
I'll turn it over to Dr. Lovesmith.
Right, thank you. So Calvin and Todd have talked about world-class employees and what characteristics we want to have to get employees here. And so our part becomes, what about when they are here and how we really treat them as a learner? Like you mentioned earlier, a pathway of growth, just so that everyone in our system is a learner. And so the last time I asked you about a learning experience, I asked you from the lens of you as a student, if you recall, and what that was like. So now I want to ask you a question in regard to you as an adult and as a learner. And so I'd just like for you to take a moment and think about an opportunity that you had to engage in learning, either at your workplace or if it was just personal learning. How did that go? Where was it good? Could it have been improved? Just overall, kind of what memories you have of that type of experience.
Who wants to go first? I see Chris down there just biting at the bit.
All right.
Continuing education learning, awesome.
So learning for your work. You learn code.
Oh, I'm talking
No.
about like SLI.
No, the
Oh,
joke
okay, got
there
it,
is
got
just
it,
when
got
we
it.
go
Never
for
mind.
training as a board, you
Yeah, so
sit in
there's-
these various workshops and you learn all of these things. And
You get a
there are
code.
some, that not this board, but there are some that just want the number at the end for the credit.
Oh, my word.
So that's
Okay,
what he's talking
so
about.
that's actually a great example because sometimes learning is irrelevant, or maybe it's not what we wanted. It was prescribed. It didn't inspire us. It was just something we had to participate in, and we all know there's a lot of required learning that sometimes does fall into that category. But what we want to do is to take a twist on that and to inspire learning of all of our staff. So a lot of times when Vicki, Dean, or she's here, she'll be leading this project, or I talk about learning in our system, we often come to you and talk about our administrator learning, we talk about our teacher learning, but this is creating a system where everyone learns. Every world-class employee that we bring to the team is a learner. Next slide. So if you think about that, you think that we would have our gardens crew who might want to identify how Disney World, they might want to learn about how Disney World does their grounds. That might be something that inspires them because we know Disney World has exceptional groundwork. Or we might have an administrative assistant who really wants to focus on communication and what tools are out there to support their campus or their department with communication. That might be a key in their department. We have leaders that want to focus on change management and how do I really lead through this different change. That last one, we might have a painter that not only are they painting walls, but they learned about paint and they know what colors that they could recommend and what mood that creates in a classroom or an office environment. And the real concept behind that is inspiration, that every single person to grow and to be better in the job that they are in Belton ISD, that they are a learner. Next slide. So to accomplish that, we are going to have a committee that pulls together to develop learning beliefs. Those beliefs might be things like what I've already said. We believe in Belton ISD that every employee will be a learner. We believe that learning is important to one's job performance and personal growth. And so we'll develop those expectations as a system. But this is not that kind of learning that we talked about at the beginning where you're told what you will learn or what's prescribed to you. This is about you owning your learning. And so how do we support you in that learning? And this is going to take the work of every single administrator or supervisor within the system. And so our plan for this learning system will be to develop those shared beliefs, to instill in our work culture and our world-class team that you'll own your learning, and then to put systems in place to support that. So we'll have people that'll be maybe writing learning goals that have never written those before. So how will we support them with what do you want to learn about? You know, for some people that may be a challenge. They've never thought about, well, what could I learn about, or how can I choose that? And so we would have opportunity. So our system will support with identifying those learning goals, helping them know how to identify them, with who they might learn with. So developing a culture that you may be learning with people in job-alike scenarios. You may be getting with people and you're studying all different things, but you're sharing what you're learning, because even when you're sharing what you're learning, it's different from somebody else. It's creating that culture of learning's important, and it's important for everyone. And this is very different from what we've done in the past. We've always focused on teachers. We've come to you with lots of PD that we're offering, but where are those positions that we've not really explicitly said your learning is important, and we want it to not only be important to us, but important to you. And so we will be working, Vicki, like I said, Vicki Dina will lead this, where she will get that committee together to establish those beliefs and that process to support our learners. And so that's the next piece of creating a world-class team. Do you have questions about how that might work, or what that might look like, or what comes to your mind when you hear that?
You know, one of the things that I've learned over and over in my time as, either an employee or as an adult in any respect, even as a kid, is that if somebody empowers me and trusts me with something, that's going to make me want to have a passion for it all the more, and make me want to own my own work and be proud of my work. And then if I'm proud of my work, then I work harder. But if I'm working for somebody else, or I'm just being assigned something, just being told to do something, it's meaningless for kids and adults alike. And so I appreciate this. I feel with Matt's leadership, empowerment of students and teachers and families has been a big emphasis, and I think it's key.
Okay, anyone else? Go ahead.
Sorry. When I hear the discussions that we're having tonight, Todd and Calvin, and then Deanna, you coming up here and talking to us about that, for me, it's exciting because I see the goal.
Yeah.
You see the goal, you read it and you ponder it, but I see it coming to life. I see it happening. So that's very enlightening for me. So I know there's a lot of work behind the scenes. You come in and talk to us for a little while, but that tells me that you guys are thinking, you're pondering, and you're taking action. So I appreciate that.
We're excited. I think it's a very powerful message to send to that it's not just our students who are learners, but we are all learners, and everyone. We should, as an educational institution, valuing learning is at our core. And so to really be able to say that we want every adult to value learning is a big commitment and step on our part. So with that piece, one of the biggest pieces that we really want to focus on is, in addition to every employee learning, is to really cultivate leadership You all approved 2 positions to really focus on our administrators. You mentioned earlier you think our principals are key personnel. And so with that, our Hrtu is going to begin with their work on focused on principal leadership.
Thank you, Dr. Love-Smith.
Good evening, everybody. Nice
Good
to see
evening.
you all. Pleasure to be here. So last June, thankfully, this very board approved 2 positions entitled Executive Director of School Leadership, one for the secondary level, overseeing middle schools and high schools, that's me, and one seeing elementary, which is Gabby. So first of all, we want to thank you very much for approving those positions, and we are just thrilled to be here this evening, and we've just loved every minute of our experience here in Belton and feel a big part of the family already. And so we're very excited to share a little bit more about the role that you approved and how it aligns with Goal 3, which is attracting, retaining, and supporting, in this case, our principals and cultivating that leadership. Next slide. So there's four areas that we really want to focus on tonight, and I'm going to hit on bullet 2 and 3 really quick, and then we're going to dive into 1 and 4 for further discussion. But it's to coach, to align, to build accountability, and develop principals as instructional leaders. That alignment piece, bullet number 2, is really aligning central office with school level leadership, right? And we like to describe it as being the glue that brings all elements together and not having working in silos, right? But really making that interdependence on one another, okay? Building accountability, I mean, we're all accountable in one way or another, right? And the most important accountability is to ourselves, right? To ourselves, to our purpose and our why, and to us being, as principals, in service to our students and to our staff, right? And so we're supporting teachers, principals in that accountability to themselves, to their students, to their school improvement plans, and certainly our district goals, right? And supporting principals in that way. And so we're gonna jump into the coaching piece, because I really like to hear from y'all about your coaching experience. So if you can go to the next slide for me. I want you to think about, if you would, and reflect on a time in your professional life. Think about as a professional, a time where you were coached by somebody. And if you would, enlighten me, what made that coaching experience so positive?
I recall being a very young employee at a very tender age, just scared to death, not really understanding what the expectation would be of me. But I had someone in my workplace who took the time and the opportunity to take their time to show me the right way to do things. There were other coworkers that had some shortcuts they wanted me to learn, but I had this one individual that showed me the right way to do things, and I ended up spending 28 years at that particular location and retired from there. So
they
coaching
took
was
the time.
key.
They took time. Out of their busy schedule, right, to invest in you. That's fantastic. What else?
So for me, I mean, it wasn't just cramming information or how-to at me, right, but it was helping me figure out the answers to the questions, right, and guiding me and trying to put some framework in place so that I could discover where I needed to be.
Right.
And that the process of that back and forth, and there were probably more questions asked than statements made, right? And the process of that back and forth and that discovery, right, was really, I think, key to the experience.
Yeah, so they didn't just give you the answer, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
They wrestled they kind of wrestled through the problem with you.
Right.
Absolutely. Other examples? Could be an athletic coach too.
Well, I think
coaching experience,
for
right?
me, it was several years ago, actually, the guy became a good friend of mine. But me and my business partners had kind of hit a pinnacle we couldn't get past. We had already gotten to one of the highest levels, higher than we ever thought. We couldn't break through to the next level. And so we brought in a guy who coached us. And with him, I think the reason is, one, he was engaging. He cared. He showed the proper respect for what we had built.
Yes.
but also knew the next level we wanted to go to. And, he couldn't tell us how to do it. All he could do was walk us through the steps. But, and he did. It was we worked with him for probably 3 years. Yeah. It was a great relationship. And it was because, one, he did respect it. Others that we brought in, there was no respect paid to what we had built. Yeah. It was, well, we're just going to tear this whole thing down and rebuild it. And we were like, no, we've already built this really good business. We just want to get it to the next level. And I think that was it, to be engaging, and because he had done it. Yeah. There's a certain amount of respect that comes when you know that someone has done something that you're trying to do.
Sure, absolutely. And what really jumped out at me there is that respecting what has already been established, right? And just building upon it, because we all know everybody works tremendously hard, and you don't know what the circumstances have always been on the things prior and everything they've been through, but to build on that, build on assets, build on that passion, that really drive that a principal has for their building and for their community, right? And so as we think about those coaching experiences, we think of time, we think about questioning, right? We think about respect. Those are the attributes that that guide our work with principals. Those same foundational items, those effective coaching experiences. Doesn't mean it's always easy, because we do ask tough questions of one another, because we have that mutual respect, that relationship, that trust that we try to establish over time. I've had the honor of being in education for 17 years, as an athletic coach, as a teacher, as an assistant principal, and a principal, and I'll tell you, some of my greatest learning moments was having amazing coaches and mentors who really asked tough questions, right? Who asked tough questions, and I knew they had my back, right? And I knew that they were in it with me, working side by side as a partner to achieve the same goal together. And so that's a big part of our role, and wanted to share a little bit with you about that today. All right, so any questions, thoughts, perspectives about that?
Arturo, I've got a story I want to share with you.
Yes, sir, please.
When you asked that question about a professional learning experience that you had, I was thinking about something that happened to me, probably more than 25 years ago. We were working on a case, and I was going to take a deposition of a key witness in a case. Going to be a long deposition, lots of preparation, that kind of thing. And I had an old lawyer with me that probably been practicing for, 30 years. And I wanted to do really well, and I wanted to really get after this witness. So I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do, asking one question at a time, trying to establish one fact at a time. And it's going on and on and on and on. And sometimes coaching is just something really, really simple. And after we got done, we were heading back to the office, and we were talking about the deposition and saying, man, I got him there, didn't I? And I got him here, didn't I? And he said, son, let me tell you something. He said, once you strike oil, quit drilling. And he said, you went on for about 3 hours, and you struck oil about an hour into it, and you should have stopped drilling. So sometimes it's something really simple.
I agree. Absolutely. And we can all probably remember a powerful moment like that in our lives, that somebody said that maybe we were putting all of our might into something, and something the most simplest, because we're in it, right? We're living it. We're in it every day, can just be almost life-changing, right? And so I can relate to that very much so. I'll share a story with you later, but that's what we hope to accomplish as well. Thank you for that.
I just want to say real quickly, too, there's a finesse to this role that's really interesting, because the role of a principal supervisor, I know it might be hard to believe, but as a high school principal, I screwed up a lot. And as an assistant principal, I screwed up a lot. And there are a lot of things that you have that can go on in a school, right, that happen on a regular basis. Arturo and Gabby's role is to help guide through those things, but not just correct the mistake, but to build capacity, kind of like Janet mentioned earlier, to build an investment in people so that they grow and blossom and are able to handle those things moving forward. I can think of a lot of these instances where I, as a young administrator, had somebody invest time in me and sit down and have a conversation with me. And sometimes, to Manuel's point, it could be a 10-minute conversation, and I learned a ton from it. And others were a lot more in depth. But this finesse is a really important piece of their job. Sometimes they have to be, we call it balanced leadership. They have to step up and provide directives and settle a situation and help the principal land a plane on something. Other times they need to step back, and it's about asking the right question at the right time to build that capacity. So I applaud them in stepping into their new roles, because that's a tricky situation to be in, and they've handled it marvelously so far.
Okay, so I want to share this with you all. I'm about to jump out of my seat. I need to share this with you, since we're sharing and caring. You know, I spoke about the patience that someone took with me. I still, to this day, and I can bring it to you, have an evaluation, a performance evaluation that was done for me. And was it totally 100% positive? No, because it said that I sometimes lack tact with others. And it said that because of that, it's only because I was demanding perfection out of my coworkers, and that was because I held myself to a higher standard. Somebody found that within me that I did not know. Somebody saw that within me. And today, to go back and read that and to know that I had all this potential that somebody else saw, that's key.
Yes, ma'am.
That's key. Taking the time to find and just cultivate and mold that potential.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. So I'm going to turn it over to Gabby here to talk about principal as instructional leader. But I will say, I'm ready to keep this going. I'm ready to keep this going. So I'll come back another day and we'll keep it going. All right? Thank you.
Yeah, this is not fair, because I'm ready to keep it going also. And Mr. Alcazar, Dr. Golden is giggling back here because I got the gift of gab, and we both love our jobs as principals. We do have that experience and just left there, and it is not our job to share our expertise with somebody else. It's our job to uncover the brilliance in them, right? Not to share our own brilliance, but to uncover the brilliance in them. So anyways, we do both love our jobs. We love the work leading at the campus level as well, and so we have to check ourselves, right, and be there as a support to help people with that balanced push and pull. Mr. Taggart, I have a question for you. You said that you believe the principal is the most important role that we have. I'm just curious about why you said that, and I'm curious from all of you about, with your own experiences as parents, as board members, as educators, what is it that you expect from principals and what role they play in exceptional learning for children? So, not to put you on the spot, but I called you on it, Mr. Taggart, because you said it.
Well, I was a teacher once, so I have a little bit different perspective maybe than other folks who've never been in the trenches. And I know what it's like to be on a campus with good leadership, and I know what it's like to be on a campus with poor leadership. And so the thing about the principal job is that every campus has its own culture. A lot of times it's based on the demographic breakdown of the neighborhoods that they're in, or what level, middle school or high school or alternative school, DAEP. Sandy does such a good job over there. But every campus has a culture, and it takes a special person to handle the nuts and bolts of all the craziness that goes on at a campus all day long. That person also has to answer to the administration, their bosses. They have to answer to their teachers, they have to answer to their parents, and they have to make sure that the kids are being taken care of. And all of this is happening all at the same time. So to me, the principal, if you look around in districts and you can find campuses that are low performing, I bet I know where you can start. You've lost that teacher culture on that campus, and it starts at the top. And I may be saying some hard words, but it's the truth. So y'all's job, I think sometimes, I'm an old athlete, I'm an old coach, I follow sports. Head coaches in college get 2 or 3 years to set a culture, and if it's not working, they're gone. And I think sometimes y'all have to make those hard decisions. Sometimes they're good people, but they're not in the right place. They're not in the right situation where their talents are going to enhance all of the things, the nuances that need to make that specific campus work. And that person may be able to go and make a 1600 on the SAT test, but they're not working in that position. And I think that's a tough part of what y'all's role is how can you maximize that person's potential, but maybe it may not be the right fit. But to me, that principle is getting hit from so many different directions. It's like being in a tornado every day. But they have to be the rock to keep that thing together at all times. I think it's the toughest role in our school system. I do. And it takes a special person to be a good principal, because I think there's so many different ways to evaluate a good principal.
Well, I'm going to transition just a bit. I see you, Mr. Floor, and just say that if you'll flip 2 slides, please, I sure would appreciate it. 80% of our time is devoted to supporting principals. So I heard you all say that somebody invested that time in you. Somebody is able to navigate all of the different things that are coming. Our roles are completely devoted 80% of the time to campus work with principals, and that's either on the campus or in professional learning with them. So you all have made a significant investment in our principals to achieve all the things that either you described experience from your coaches or what you've just spoken about, Mr. Taggart, in all the demands that come a principal's way as well for the culture. So it's a big investment, right? So some of the things that we'll do on campus, just to give you a glimpse into the day-to-day role, that what that coaching looks like is a shift from supervisors whose plates are spread thin to who you might stop by for a celebration or because some event is going on or there was some problem. We are with principals weekly, invested in that relationship with them and in the key work that they're doing on their campus. So that's a big shift from just a swing by because something happened to we are with you in the work with you, thinking, solving problems alongside you related to your improvement efforts, right? There's a difference, but there's a shift from an annual evaluation that maybe you saw a note that you treasure still on your annual evaluation to we're there weekly invested with principals, giving constant feedback, asking constant reflective questions, trying to uncover the thinking from principals. So there's that frequency, right? We all know what evaluation on standardized assessments look like. You get some input at the end of the year. What we do is that investment in time, looking at data and evidence on a regular basis so that we're able to make some pivots and some shifts based on what's going on with our students in the classroom, with our teachers on an ongoing basis. By us being there frequently also, we're not making assumptions based on our limited experiences with people where it is evaluative or where we're having less frequent feedback. Because we're partners and side by side with that shared accountability, the feedback that they're getting is also more authentic and goes to a deeper level. So that's some of what the work looks like with our one-on-one coaching. And like I said, we're there weekly, invested in principals. If I don't see somebody face-to-face and spend some time on campus, we're definitely on the phone working through and solving some problems as well. In addition to that, we also, if you'll just go ahead and flip, we are also designing shared learning experiences for campus principals. Hrtu talked about that central office transformation, but we have developed learning time every other week we're with principals. In fact, tomorrow morning in what we're calling leadership learning, and we're really studying the responsibilities of principals as leaders, instructional leaders, and we're doing that alongside some of our central office team as well. They're elbow to elbow with us in that principal learning so that we're seeing those bridges between. But I will also say, you spoke to that holding each other accountable and growing each other, having that collaborative time as a professional learning community, we're able to see those similar problems of practice that we're working through. I'm going to real quickly wrap us up with one, saying thank you for investment in our principals as one of the most important roles. I would engage in debate there with our teachers being so critically important to the success of our children, but what research will tell us, the number 2 most important role is that principal in impacting what student achievement is. But I also want to say thank you for the investment in us. As we're talking about a support system for world-class employees, I want you all to also know that with this being a new position that's unique in Belton ISD, really, Hrtu and I were accepted to a national leadership academy for principal supervisors. There are very few people in the country who are serving in the role of the nature that we are. And we are committed to that continuous growth. And what we see over and over again in our learning sessions is that there are very few places that have truly devoted time in staffing allocations in these coaching roles to the principalship. And so we're a part of innovative learning and groundbreaking learning, and our colleagues across the nation are giving us feedback about envy and the fact that we're able to invest in the right way that we should. So I want to say thank you for that support system, not only for our principals, which means it's support for our teachers and most importantly our kids, but also know that we're committed to this continuous improvement. It is new, and we're going to get better and better and better, and we're invested in that learning as well. Do y'all have any questions for me or for Hrtu as we are wrapping up?
Don't think we have any questions, but certainly thank you for this information, and look forward to future updates to see how things are progressing, and just excited to know that we have these new positions in place to help our campus leaders do better for the staff that they are responsible for.
Thank you so much.
Did you have something, Manuel?
Well, I wanted to share something with the administrators.
Sure.
Based upon that question that homework we got in our bulletin
About the beliefs?
Yes.
about the beliefs.
Yep, I have mine too.
Oh,
Sounds
okay.
good.
Well, I just wanted to share that, but I can do that whenever.
Okay. Do we want to do that when
We
we,
can jump
at our
to that
next
now.
board workshop, or do you want to do that now?
We can jump to that and do it real quickly right now and let people share out if you want, and then take
Sure,
a
we'll
break.
start with
Get to
Manuel
keep
and just
chatting
work
about
our
it.
way up the top of the stage.
just-
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank
Appreciate
Gabby and Hrtu and Todd and Calvin and Melinda and Deanna for their participation tonight. Hopefully you have a sense that Goal 3 is moving forward in Belton ISD. There's a lot of moving pieces that are happening, but I also want to point out that your investment in learning and growth is all focused on one thing here, and it's something that I see in each of you every day, and that's a focus on kids. Our job is to create great learning experiences for kids, and I feel like every one of the pieces that they talked about is all focused on that as well. So thank you to them for their work, and thank you to our board for supporting that work.
Thank you. We were asked to either use as an example the belief statements that were in the bulletin, or just kind of write our own, and I did a combination of the two. We'll start with Manuel, if you want to share what you have written there.
Okay. I think the question was in BISD, we value blank.
Yes.
And I was pondering goal that we talked about today when I put this down. So I made it very simple. In BISD, we value our employees. And then I think the next one was, I believe blank. And I kind of went a little lengthy here, but I wrote this out after pondering this for a little while. I believe the success of our students rests on the summation of the following elements. Number one, a superintendent that is insightful with strong leadership skills. I think we hit the jackpot there. Number two, an engaged cabinet and staff, and I think we have that. Number three, that was mentioned, I think Gabby or Hrtu or somebody mentioned it, familial involvement, and I think we have that in our district. Number four, district-wide community support, which I think we have. And number five, the establishment of a culture where students desire to succeed. And I think that's in line with clarity, kindness, and unity and purpose.
Awesome.
So those are my thoughts.
Okay.
Thank you.
I stuck with two belief statements. I borrowed a little bit from some examples that we had. I believe that the education of each and every student is the responsibility of the school district, the student, the family, and the community. The second belief statement I have here is that I believe technology is a relevant tool that enhances learning opportunities beyond the classroom. Anyone else want to, Janet, want to share yours?
Okay, so I believe that every student deserves the right to a high-quality education. And I believe that in BISD, we believe that it is every staff member's responsibility to value the unique needs of each student and their ability to grow.
Thank you. On the floor, Mr. Floor.
All right, so if somebody doesn't follow directions, it's going to be me always. So I didn't form mine quite as well, right? But I thought more about topics, right, and things that we wanted to include. And so, one of those topics was the belief that learning happens in the classroom, but not just in the classroom, right? And on our stages and on our fields and on, you know, whatever the case may be, right? But learning happens everywhere. The idea that, you know, comprehensive improvement, right, like, and measuring, you know, what we're doing is going to help us get to the next level, right? And sort of that measurement is important. And more from a district standpoint, not necessarily from a standardized test standpoint, right? Because I think another belief, you know, in there is we are more than a test. Like, our students are more than a test. And I know we pretty much all feel that way. See, what else did I hit that you guys didn't already hit? I think most of it overlaps with the rest of you, so I'll stop.
Okay. Thank you. Mr.
Oh,
Moore?
mine-
All this love. One big family.
I believe, and I believe that we can and will continue to get better every day as a district. And as far as values, I believe that at Belton ISD, we put the value of each and every person in the district.
Awesome. Thank you. Mr. Taggart?
Appreciate the setup there, Jeff. So I went through all the examples, the links, and I found one from Charlotte in the North Carolina that I don't think I could have written it better, so I'm going to read it. I believe each student is uniquely capable and deserves an engaging, relevant, and challenging educational experience. The thing I liked about it was each student. And I think that when you and I toured, when we walked Miller Heights, we went into a specific classroom where that was being done at so many different levels in that one room. It made me feel good when I walked out. So that was the one there. And I like the one at Alvin because they went in depth on facilities. And so I believe facilities will be provided that are supportive of a quality instructional program and represent the importance of public education. And that's the ones I like.
Thank you.
I just wanted to thank our board. So just for clarity purposes, what we'll do is we'll take these statements now, and I jotted a bunch of notes down, and Connie is going to help me with those notes from the recording, and we'll come back to you all with some bulleted beliefs and values for BISD and see if you all agree to those based on what you've shared tonight and do a little refining. These statements, so going back to what Todd mentioned earlier, these statements will help us build Culture Day, will help us decide who are the right fits to hire in our district, because based on the beliefs of the community representatives that we see in front of us tonight, we should be able to keep that momentum moving forward. So thank you for doing that, and look forward to the next steps on that.
Awesome. Would it be easier if we just emailed our statements to Connie, so that way she's not having to go back to listen to the recording?
She is like celebrating
She's
you
doing,
right
yes,
now.
let's do that.
This is board celebration, like, she is celebrating you.
Let's work smarter, not harder.
Celebrating
Board,
you.
if you all would email your belief statements or your statements to Connie as quick as you can, that'd be appreciated. So that, if there is nothing further for this particular workshop, we're going to find ourselves adjourned. We will open into a regular board meeting at 6:15. So join us at 6:15. Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
stand adjourned.